Okay, so hopefully you've done the formative number 3 in Schoology, covalent bonding notes, the metallic bonding video, and now we are going to do the metallic bonding notes. This is going to be page 41 in your binders. Okay, and from the video, hopefully you saw that metallic bonding happens between metals. Metals and only metals. Okay. In metallic bonding, we have valence electrons that are delocalized. And what that means is they are not confined to a single atom. Okay, so these electrons over here are electrons that are not confined to a single atom. So they can kind of move in between the different metal ions. What we call this is a sea of electrons, because they're kind of just moving. Kind of like if you had a fishy in a sea. Okay. Metallic bonding, rather than producing a chemical compound, you are producing physical mixtures. Okay, so again, not chemical compounds. Okay, so we're producing mixtures, not compounds. And so what we can see is when we have a pure metal, the layers can kind of slide over each other. And later on, we're going to look at some examples of something called an alloy, where you can't slide on top of each other. So let's move on to metallic bonding properties. So electrons, because there are electrons floating around, you can conduct electricity These are in a solid state. So all metals that we see, or most metals that we see in nature, are going to be in a solid state at room temperature. These are going to have super high melting points. And boiling points. Okay. And hopefully from the video you saw that they are malleable. So they can bend. Ductile. So malleable, they can be pounded into a thin sheet. Ductile, they can be stretched into a thin wire. And lastly, they are lustrous. So they're shiny. Okay. So in addition to pure metal, we can have something called an alloy. So this is formed when two different metals combine. Okay, so over here we see a pure metal compared to an alloy. So for an alloy, you'll have two different metals, so you can have a blue one like this, or then tiny green ones. Okay. And these have blended properties of the two different metals. So properties are blended. And again, these are physical mixtures. So it's kind of like a salad bowl where you have your salad and your salad, or your lettuce and your tomato. Here you're just going to have metal 1 and metal 2. Okay. So pure metals can kind of slide over one another, but alloys are going to be a little bit stronger because they cannot slide over one another. Okay, and we have two different types of alloys. Okay. The first type of alloy is our substitutional alloy. Okay, this is when one element is added in place of another. Okay, so an example of this would be brass, which is made up of copper and zinc. Okay. And then the second type of alloy is the interstitial alloy. So this is when small atoms will fill the spaces in between the larger atoms. So if you have big atoms like this, you'll have smaller atoms that fill the spaces. Okay? So small atoms fill in the spaces between the large atoms. Okay, and an example of this would be steel. And steel is going to be iron plus carbon. Okay. So that's all for the metallic bonding notes. We're not going to go too in depth like we did with ionic bonding or covalent bonding for metallic bonding. But for the rest of the class, please work on the covalent bonding practice, so the back side of the notes, the ionic bonding practice if you haven't finished it from yesterday, as well as the bonding practice if you haven't finished it from yesterday. I will do stamping and that sort of thing on Friday. But yes, please be respectful to the sub for the rest of the class. Pretty please. Thanks. See you Friday.